Welcome. This is the podcast series dedicated to living a revenue culture. Long-term business success, which most people define as maximizing profit, requires that to maximize your profit, you have to optimize your people. And the only way you can optimize people is in a low friction context. So this podcast is dedicated to introducing you to people who are working on that, sometimes massively successful, sometimes learning new lessons all the time. And so twice a month, we bring you people out there in the real world doing this. Today, the guest is Bob Armbrister, and I've only had now, he's the second alumni of the college I went to. So this is a special treat for me. You can already guess he was a few decades afterwards. But Bob's the president and CEO of Spark. Spark Business Works. And there's some really interesting, powerful things about what he does. Um, they are a combination of strategy, and he talks about application. And we know a lot of people focus on application without strategy, and some people focus on strategy without application. So Bob's team works on both as part of their deliverables. And he's both in the software technology world as well as digital marketing. And I find that particularly fascinating because today marketing is about technology. And so to keep those connected on purpose and linked to strategy and applications, I think really important. His clients, and he'll tell you more later, are mid-sized businesses throughout the country. And he uses an approach of building his team to be mission driven and client focused. And I've met some of his team members, and I can tell you that they really use the word team in its probably fullest definition. So, with that, I just want to say, welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for having me, and let's go Broncos.
uh, they lost the state, right?
They did. Try at
So,
least watch the first quarter there, and then it's a close game for a little while.
yeah, I don't know why we start there almost every year, but so I want to thank you for being here. And
Sure, thank you.
you and I've had multiple chances to talk both about this and other things. So tell the audience about your business and how you got here, because you're one of the few people I've seen really tie together digital marketing and IT services, and not just in one office, but you're in multiple offices and multiple locations. So share a little.
Yeah, yeah. So after getting my degree in business information systems, kind of getting the mix of business and technology, I had quite a bit of experience in different industries, solving business problems and just using technology to do it. And that was always super exciting for me. I eventually learned how to build software when I was running some software as a service startups, and I basically learned over the course of maybe 4 or 5 different startups how not to build software. So that was actually just as good as learning how to do it right. And so what I did end up doing over those years of software failure was basically building a network of people that knew what I was doing. And so when they came across a business challenge that they thought software would solve, I was the first person they called. And before I realized it, the service side of the business was actually the business, right? Instead of hoping I could build something to sell to other people, it was actually the service all along that made the most sense. And so I guess probably a little contrarian. Let's build a software service company instead of a platform. But we did that, started that about just over 10 years or just close to 10 years ago. And we deliberately wanted to focus on smaller middle market firms that we called them too big to be small and then too small to be big, right? So they're too big to use maybe some of off-the-shelf tools that every small firm can use, but then they're too big, too small to use the big boys. And so they kind of are stuck in this messy middle, we call it, where they don't have maybe an executive on their team with technology experience, but they have real world problems, problems that can be easily solved typically with the right technology software. And so they're also a lot more fun to work with, in our opinion. You get to work with the decision makers and you get to be on the shop or out on the job site and actually seeing technology go to work. And so, that's kind of the target market and how we got here. And you brought up digital marketing and why on earth would we do that since we're a software firm? But our clients, it was really driven from our clients requesting that service offering. Can you help us? You've helped us streamline our operations internally. Can you help us streamline our outbound marketing? Can you help us streamline? And a lot of that's data driven too, right? How
Yeah.
do we retarget our customers or our clients? So as digital marketing has become more technical, the data and analytics as the other side of our business. So it seemed to be a pretty good fit, and it's another reason for customers that we can stay sticky. So we like it.
I'm going to steal your messy middle. I love that term because that's really what it boils down to. And you in the middle, and if you disagree, let me know. But I see the companies in the middle often have a lot of change going on because they're not small anymore, where they only do a couple of things, and they're not set in their ways where they consider themselves a commodity producer, and they're adding new things and new locations and new people, and that creates a lot of change, and it's hard to staff for that. So is that part of what the value you guys bring?
Yeah, how we help them basically build out a custom scheduling tool. And they said, well, we only have two estimators because when we had a third, our systems just broke down because the three people just couldn't coordinate. When we have two, that can happen. So our system will help them with their major blocker, which is we can't grow because everything's got to be coordinated with these two individuals, and the complexities grow tremendously when we add more. So those are the kind of scenarios where you have a change in the business, it's growing and it's getting hindered by some operations or some limitations. A lot of times it's also maybe a ownership transition from first generation to second generation or third generation to fourth generation. And when the younger people are taking over, there's always a inkling for better software, better services to run the organization. So we definitely see those being a catalyst. Probably 80% of the time, it's tied to some event that's kind of pushing them to finally make a decision.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, but generational change uh, in the mid-sized market where, dad or grandpa or somebody started, I got that situation myself. And I work with one of my grandkids, and it's wonderful because I I think of business at a keyboard, and he thinks of business as a phone. And he can do stuff on the phone I can't do on the keyboard. And I know he's representing the, the probably today more than half of the market, and certainly the up and coming market, not the retiring market. And
Yeah.
so having somebody that can bridge those two positions is really important. And so tell me about how you tie, how does the marketing come up? Do your clients start with I have an IT need, or do they start with a marketing need, or do they start coming to you with both?
Yeah, so the majority of the organization, about 75% of our organization is around the custom software, workflow optimization tools, integrations, data. Um, the digital marketing was really we made an acquisition about 5 years ago to basically get that skill set in-house. And so since then we've made another acquisition to just add on more capabilities of that group. And our digital marketing team within Spark really just serves our current clients. So they're not out going to market for those types of customers. They are busy. They are plenty busy with just cross-serving our custom software clients, which is really cool. We do have referrals. I mean, referrals are 90 some percent of our new clients come through referrals. So we do get some clients coming in just through digital marketing, through referrals, but majority of the time it's our custom software business that's really driving into the market.
Yeah, when we look at what's going on today, if people aren't combining data almost real time, if not real time's even better, and into their marketing programs to determine which programs are working and which programs can scale or can't scale, which ones you should shoot, the company's going to be in trouble without that data. Is that the gap you guys fill?
Yeah, so it typically we the way that we talk about it is we can help you on the inside of your business or the outside, right? So the inside is going to be like that example about the custom scheduling tool. We're growing out of our current software. We need help. That's more of an inside the business problem. On the outside of the business problem would be, hey, I need help on my digital advertising. How do I target the right market, or my branding needs updated, or my website needs, refresh. And then all of that, um, when you really take a data focused approach, or we take a lot of the concepts from custom software development, which is personas, understanding the
Yeah,
users. You use a lot of that same concepts in the digital marketing side. And so our team's very well versed in that. And the key then is also the ROI side. So when it comes to custom software development and building something pretty significant for a company, the ROI needs to be there, right? There needs to be a very clear return. And so we take that same mindset to the digital marketing side as well, right? If you're going to advertise on Meta, or you're going to advertise on LinkedIn, or you're going to run a campaign, there needs to be a very clear, what am I getting for my money concept there. And so we take that similar business approach to the digital marketing side. So we're a very business forward company. And when we're delivering these services to our clients, there needs to be a really good reason to keep doing that. And so we take that approach to the digital marketing side, which, there's a lot of firms that don't. They're very,
yeah,
they don't take that same business approach. So,
yeah. I'm
yeah.
going to do the same thing with you I did with five other people, and here's what it costs, and I hope you like it.
Right. Yeah. We always say, hey, what does success look like? We're just meeting with a client that wants to run um, basically video ads, which is really neat now, is YouTube is actually being viewed. I think I saw the statistic. It was 14% of all television traffic now in the living room is YouTube.
Yep.
And you can use some of the newer tools these days. You can display your ads on all sorts of devices, right? So it's easier than ever to get in the living room with an advertisement, and you can even retarget, and you can the demographics and what you can define, because now that YouTube's tied to your Google account, they know your search history, they know all your buying habits. You can now show your ads to the exact target market that you need, and then you can do what's called um, lookalike groups. So, hey, here's what my current clients, here's who my
Yep.
current clients are, advertise to other people that look like this group. So the technology and the data around the digital marketing side is pretty cool. And there's a lot of firms that just don't have the technical capabilities to handle some of that. So that's kind of one of our competitive advantages on why we combine both those offerings, because I have not met another firm that's done it successfully, and we're finding a way to make it work.
That's very cool. Now, as you're telling that story, my brain is saying, sounds like an application for AI. Is that part of the package?
So we do a lot with AI, with our current client. So we use it quite a bit at Spark, from coding to recording conversations around, specifications and summarizing, and it's pretty neat. The stuff that we're using it for. We've seen less adoption or less enthusiasm from our client base to implement AI in their custom software programs than we originally thought we would. We thought we'd be seeing a lot more interest around it. A lot of our clients are very hesitant to share their information into the AI universe because it's business information. It's confident. I mean, this is some
Yeah.
really important stuff. And to say, hey, we can technically do a lot of great stuff, but you have to trust that this data is going to stay secure. And that trust right now with most of the clients that we're seeing in the middle market is not there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that raises another question. I'm assuming part of your IT services are data security kinds of things.
So we have partners we have that we suggest our clients work with when it comes to most of their data security from like a managed service aspect. We have our team around our DevOps and security around the platforms that we host for our customers if we're hosting their applications. But when it comes to kind of corporate security, data governance, all of that, we have several partners that we ask our customers when they're looking for a provider to help with that. We recommend that service. So we don't do that ourselves.
Okay. So I'm going to change direction now. Uh,
Okay.
I had the opportunity a few weeks ago to meet some of your team, and I came away very impressed with them acting like what I think a team is supposed to act like, where they actually collaborate with each other and they seem to trust each other and they have um, conversations where they're innovative and creative. And I hope that's what it really is, or they were just good actors for the day. I'm not sure which, but tell me how you approach building your teams and how you get the right people because your work is not cookie cutter work, which means you probably need a different employee than some other people need.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, we did win the best and brightest to work for in West Michigan, and we also won the nationwide last year, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's just an internal survey, right? There's no swaying that. It's an internal survey, and then they have to audit some of your practices. You know, we have financial goals in our organization, and they're offset by a culture goal. So we have a what's called a pulse score. Every Friday, everyone's got to submit 1 to 5. How you feeling? Um, our goal is to stay above a 4. It's not easy to do. Last week we were at 4.3. I think we're the highest we have been all year. We usually float around 4, 4.2. Um, and so we invest a lot of time in manager one-on-ones with their employees each week, corporate check-ins, all company calls, you know, social gatherings, which early in my career I thought culture was just something you read about in business school, and it really didn't make a lot of sense, and it was kind of fluff. Until then, you really see it in real life and the what it does for the organization, and so we do invest quite a bit in the culture. Um, you know, bringing people in, seeing who we want to join the bus. We've gotten way stronger at that over the last few years. Because before it was, hey, we just need any, warm body that can come in here and do this work. And now, we are almost trying to disqualify candidates as soon as possible, where we were never that direct in our previous interviews. So, we kind of see it holistically from onboarding, recruiting, but then also just supporting people in their learning. A lot of what we do, you can be told the best practice on how to run a software project, but until you have a project that crashes and burns, you're now going to learn the lesson, right? So, and we invest in our team. So when they do that, we're like, hey, we just made a huge investment in your learning. And so, um, we know you're not going to make that mistake again. So that's kind of the approach we've taken, and I think it's working out pretty well. But also trying to be constantly learning and trying new things and not getting stuck on our ways is huge. So people need to feel safe in the culture to do that and explore new things. So we try to value that as well.
Tell me about, because everybody talks about onboarding, and I guess I should take that back. We wish everybody talked about onboarding. A lot of people don't even think about it, and then others, onboarding is you fill out two forms and they show you the desk and the phone. How do you think about onboarding?
Yeah, so our onboarding starts when the offer letter is accepted. We actually will send out, a welcome box with some stuff in there for that person. We also send them some, hey, here's some technology, here's some links to stuff to review before you start, so that they're actually getting pretty, hyped up before they actually join. Their first week is the entire week is blocked out, hour by hour, who you're meeting with, what you're talking about. So they see that. So it's not like you're just going to sit here and not know what to do. You have your entire week. Every single moment is going to be blocked off. So you're not sitting there wondering what you're going to do, right? Um, we then have a very detailed checklist from updating your LinkedIn, update your photo, add this, all the small stuff. We actually had someone join a week and a half ago, and I asked them how it was going. They're like, "Oh, we love your videos," and I'm like, "My videos," and I totally forgot. Like we recorded videos that they have to watch. They have to watch, some of our last few all company calls, so they get an up to date speed on what's happened the last few months. So our HR team has taken a great approach, and so when those team members get onboarded, and they have an onboard buddy, so someone else in the organization that's not, their supervisor is going to be like their buddy throughout their onboarding process. And I mean, so yeah, it is pretty thorough. And we've learned our lesson, and what when doing it poorly is basically how we figured out, hey, here's some better ways we can do it after we learned our lesson once or twice, right?
Well, it's interesting. I just read a book recently, and it was supposedly kind of the definitive book on onboarding. And I think you even had more good steps than they did. So um, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we've perfected it to this point at least, but we still try to get better each time.
Yeah. So along that line, one of the things we've learned is, everybody says, well, I want my team to be aligned. And, after years of thinking about that, I think we stole the concept of alignment from either software or manufacturing, where robots get aligned to provide, the
Yep.
pre-service, the service, the post-service, and it's programmed, and there's no human nature in the picture. And my observation is you only get people aligned when you have them unified first. And if they all believe in the same mission, they have the same purpose, and they think about transferring the value to the market and to the individual clients that delights them and makes the client, glad to be your customer and happy to pay when you send them a bill. I think that comes before whatever alignment is really possible. So tell me about, how do you guys think about purpose, or your organizational unification? Is that something you, when you're interviewing people or on your team calls, you focus on?
Yeah, so I think in 2023, I created kind of a one-page business plan. And it was really, hey, what are our goals? What do we need to do this year? And I printed it off and I carried it around in my book bag everywhere I went that year. And it was pretty nice because I could always kind of go back to it and say, where am I going? Um, and I was just probably not vulnerable enough to just share it with the whole organization. I just kind of kept it to myself, to be honest. And then in 2024, I said I rolled out a version for the whole company. And it has basically our purpose on there, the vision, our values, our unique selling proposition, and then four key strategies that we had to accomplish that year. And then out of those strategies, what tactics do we have to do and how do we measure them? And we hit that year almost every single item on that plan. And we basically, every month, I'd bring it out, I'd show it to them, I'd report on it. Here's where we're at. And so we talked about it monthly. New employees, I go through it with the new employees,
Yeah,
and everyone got a copy of it, but it was still my plan. So in 2024, it was basically, hey, Bob put this together. This is Bob's plan. So at the end of 24, we had the whole company together and we had them actually develop the 2025 plan as a company. And so we've been using that same approach. And so each quarter, everyone has their own professional rock that they need to do. And that rock's got to align with one of the strategies on this page. And then we report on all those. And so that's how, from an alignment standpoint, every individual is doing something that's serving that business plan on a quarterly basis. Then we report out on it on a monthly basis. And then on a weekly basis, we're checking the metrics. So that is one thing that's helped us stay aligned across the organization.
that's very cool. Very cool. Now, when you and you mentioned earlier you'd been in other startups or other businesses before, and you think about how you approach things today with purpose and with alignment and the feedback across the group and being clear about the culture you're trying to build. How do you think all that impacts your ideal clients and the value that you actually transfer to them as a result of those things?
Yeah, I think from an ideal client and what we've learned, um, we have several years ago began disqualifying clients right at the lead gen stage during our qualification process. And we basically wrote out all the qualifications or the characteristics of an ideal client, and we book them into red, yellow, and greens. And we've actually even showed clients when clients say, "Hey, how do we look compared to your ideal client?" We actually will show them that chart of here's all the poor characteristics, and this would be a red, this would be a yellow, this would be a green. And then we try to give our competitors the reds, let them deal with those people, right? So we'd say, hey, this is not a good fit. Here, try this firm. They might be able to help you. Um, and so yeah, so now our sales team now is over the last few years, man, maybe every once in a while we might let a yellow slip in. We haven't had a red slip in a while, but that has changed tremendously. Where at the beginning of the stage, you'll take work from anybody, right?
Yeah,
And you'll
yeah,
just
yeah,
sugarcoat everything, and you'll look over all the negative, the red flags. You'll just gloss over them or make an excuse of why you need this deal. We've gotten a lot more picky around that now. Obviously, there's times where you're gonna probably take more yellow clients because there's just no greens.
but
Um, but that's one thing that's changed. And then the check-ins, the having multiple points of contact for a client is one thing that we learned a lot of lessons on. A lot of times the client-facing team members might not get the same feedback that if I called a customer and said, "How's the team doing?"
yeah,
They might tell me something a little differently. So we've begun trying to keep 2 to 3 connection points with the client so that, if for some reason we're not fulfilling up to the expectations of a client, that they have a way of contacting us and telling us that,
yeah,
which is great. Give us a chance. Let us fix it, right? None of it, we're never perfect, right? And if you have hundreds of customers, and even if 2 or 3% aren't happy, that can still be a lot, right? So
yeah,
that's our case, right? So there's our leadership team. Sometimes we're just like, hey, we only hear about the handful that aren't happy, but you get a lot of other happy ones. But how do you create systems around being able to learn those lessons or you know counteract some of the lessons you've learned before? How can you create systems to go upstream and solve some of those problems before they become them? Those are some of the things we've done differently.
yeah. That's really interesting. That having say three people make contacts with clients. Um, a lot of organizations never figure out that if I talk to the client's CFO and I talk to their head of marketing and I talk to their CIO, all three of them speak different languages with completely different expectations of what good would be from the work we deliver. So, do you find that having multiple contacts helps to um, level out the language and help facilitate meaningful conversation across both your internal silos and their silos?
Absolutely. I mean, it that is probably one of my favorite things of getting larger over the years is being able to have that, have a team size large enough where I can have that conversation and not be close to the work. Because when you're close to the work, it's just a whole different we had a client the other day where, something wasn't working right with their, they have a weekly task that has to happen and our team was like really worked up. This client's super mad, like we've got to fix this right away. And the team's working on it over here. And then, on the other side, we called the owners, hey, heard about all this stuff, and and the ownership's like, oh, totally no big deal, we know you guys are on it, so there's two sides to it. Now not all the time, but having multiple relationships around a project. Um, because it happens on the other side. Project team says, "Oh, this project's going great. We're knocking it out of the park." And then I check in, or one of our leadership team members check in with another stakeholder, and they're like, not happy. So, it works both ways, but without that, those types of issues just progress until, a boiling point. So we found that that is a huge thing, especially in professional services, is critical.
Yeah, uh, the I guess the pre-step to that is when you're in the before the contract stage and you're trying to um, identify the value that really makes the buyer's world the best. I'm guessing those multiple silos help you really identify, what's the most important in their world. And when you said ROI earlier, that actually creates the ROI that their organization overall cares about. Does that fit as well?
Yeah, we've been definitely documenting that in the proposal, in our statement of work, because a lot of times things change in a project or things change in an engagement where timeline was the most important. And then halfway through now it's no, we want to get, something else done first and we can wait. And so being able to go back to that and say, okay, hey, this is what you guys said. Has this changed? And that's one thing that we've done with a new role in the organization that started this year was our first account executive role, which is a kind of a business development role that can just kind of float through different projects, different clients, and do some of that check-in. And that's helped a lot because that individual can pull up the statement of work that the team's working on, check with the client, say, hey, when you started, this is what you said success was. Is this still the same? And how are we doing? And a lot of times it changes, right? Um,
And I'm guessing, just knowing you, that those conversations are also where you can insert your thought leadership to teach them something that they might not have thought about, but if they're aware of it, can drastically help them accomplish goals.
Yeah, we're always trying, even in the first qualification, going back to that client that had those two estimators that were being hindered. We said, okay, hey, when we sat down with them, we didn't dive into like, what are your challenges right now? We say, okay, what do you guys look like in 5 years? Is it we just have to solve this problem and we're staying the same size, or is it I'm going to have five estimators
Yeah,
in 5 years so that we don't just solve their problem for the next
yeah,
12 months, that we actually get them thinking about what it actually looks like 5 years from now or 3 years or whatever their goal is. So I think, asking those types of questions to get the clients thinking of larger versus the pain they're in right now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
helps us get some of that thought leadership around how can we serve their business over the years and get them where they want to go.
Fascinating. Um, this is really, really, you're doing some really good stuff. Now let me kind of switch directions again.
Okay.
Hey, tell me about the future. So as you look out, the question you just asked them, what's that next 3 to 5 years, um, and not just for you, but for the whole industry, your clients, your teams, the business. What are you seeing that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, AI is a big change in our industry. It can do quite a lot from a software development standpoint. So in a few years from now, I could see every single team member augmenting their ability with some type of AI. There'll probably be less options in the future. A lot of these current AI platforms are just being propped up by VC, and we'll
Yeah,
see who actually ends up, flushing out to be the handful of providers that are out there. But I could see each of our professional services group having a tailored AI assistant augmenting their work, right? So the quality of professional services from Spark will definitely go up across the board. I think from our client standpoints, the target market that we're focused on is still going to need help adopting technology in their businesses, regardless of
oh yeah,
size and what's happening. So, we think they'll demand for our services will still be there. The tools and how we deliver are definitely going to change. I think for the better. Software should get more secure, more robust, quicker and cheaper to build. So I could see custom applications for companies, the cost going down, which is cool because that means more people can afford
yeah.
it and have really specialized software for their business. So um, I see that continuing to grow. How websites and search engines and the digital marketing side of things, definitely going to change quite a bit. The search traffic is down across the globe because of what's called zero click searches. So people use Google, but they never click anything because they're taking the first AI response. So people's website traffic is down considerably. And that result from Google might sound confident, but it's not going to always be accurate, right? So AI has a way of sounding confident, but not,
Yeah.
always being true. So that changes things tremendously. The ability to create a bunch of authentic looking talent, content for really cheap is really easy to do now. So people are going to have just be inundated with highly highly specific targeted content. And so that's going to create a whole new thing. So there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening on the marketing. How do you get awareness and how do you get attention? That's going to change tremendously in the next few years. So it's pretty neat. I think there's a lot of opportunity for small and medium-sized businesses to grow if they use the tools right. I think what's not going to change, and I think what we're going to double down on, is personal relationships,
Yeah.
authenticity, in-person interactions. I think that's probably the skills and the valuable assets of the future will be those relationships and in person.
As you
That's
were
my guess.
as you were describing kind of the bulk messaging that AI enables through content, the first thing went to my brain is that makes trust harder.
Yep.
And so your comments about doubling down on the relationships and the people part, I agree with you 100% that there's going to be some kind of circle back because the things that were hard 5 years ago are easy today, and they don't have to have any authenticity in them at all. They sound
Right.
good, and so there's going to be a whole new requirement. So my last question for you is, what advice do you have for individuals, and think of it as new employees coming into the world and then the C-suite people who are your clients? What would you say to them that would help them kind of navigate this complex, rapidly changing environment we're in?
So I'll start with the client side. Um, and I think what one question that I often ask when these companies are anticipating spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on software, I ask them why their customers choose them. And they kind of sit for a while. I say, what is your competitive advantage? Why do they choose you? And they give me the reason, and we hope that that is the problem, or what we're about to build them helps that problem. If it's unrelated, then we say, hey, are you sure this is really your biggest problem? Because if your customers choose you for cost and what we're low cost, then you probably shouldn't build a big software system. You should go find the cheapest way to do it. Or, hey, my customers choose me because of the relationships, then we probably shouldn't build a tool that's going to automate all of that high touch service. Most of the times these are aligned, but sometimes it's not. But it gets them to think, because what we really say to them is you should be building tools and investing around why your customers choose you from a technical standpoint. So that's one thing I'd be, with all the AI stuff going on, and I would continue to remind yourself why customers choose you, and making sure you don't screw that up with some of the technology you might
Yeah,
choose to
I
implement. I
love
know
that.
it's
I've never heard that as a checkpoint, but it is a great one.
yeah, we it's an easy one to a lot make sure your software investments are aligned right with the business. Now, obviously, you've got all sorts of reasons why you need to invest in your business, but that's one that always kind of makes sure
Yeah.
you're aligned. For
Well,
the young people, oh, go ahead, Rick.
it also the because that approach also says we care about what's really important for you, not just to answer your question, slide a contract in, and get the money and deliver you what you asked for, even if it wasn't the perfect thing. So, there's all kinds of benefits to that. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And then from a young person entering the workforce, I mean, man, what a challenging. I mean, I just read a report or an article around unemployment. The unemployment rates for recent college grads are like higher than trade recent trade people of the same age. And so yeah, it's very difficult right now, I would say. We had two interns over the summer. One decided to work from home the entire summer. The other one came in the office the entire summer. Who do you think got the job offer? Right? I know it sounds obvious. But if I was a younger person, I would remind them to not take advice from anybody that's not in the situation that you want to be in. So don't ask your parents for advice unless your parents, are successful. If you want to be a successful software salesperson, then don't ask, your mom for advice if she's a school teacher, or,
Yeah,
around
yeah, yeah,
around what you
yeah.
should be doing. And now I'm not trying to be, obviously you wanted to get advice, but when it comes to whoever was giving one of those interns advice said, nah, just work from home, versus the other one that said you should go in the office every day and meet as many people as you can and say yes to as many projects as you can. Those two people were probably getting advice from different people. So um, I think that I would go back to the personal interaction. If you're a young person, find a way to add value in interpersonal skills and being with people that you want to eventually be like, because it's going to be very hard to outbeat on quality and speed when it comes to AI. But if you can do it in trust and interpersonal skills and hard work, that is what if my kids were graduated right now and going to the workforce, that's the advice I'd give them.
Wow. That's excellent. Excellent. So this has been spectacular. Uh, uh, I know you've got a copy of my book, but it's like you have been living what I wrote about. So uh, it's really fun for me to do this interview with you. So the last thing, anything you'd like to leave us with?
I mean, I'd like to thank you. I mean, I did, obviously I've read your book and I've handed it to my team and they've read it and I see them, using some of your phrases, like the joint statement of work and the low friction and stuff. And so it's good to see the impact um that something like that can have. So I appreciate you for that and I appreciate you inviting me on here. Um I think the key is that I would just leave for people is, we continue to hit mistakes and make mistakes and, finding a culture, building a culture where you can identify those as a group and be honest with each other and then find a better way to do things. I mean, that's really, it's easy to say we've got onboarding great and everything's awesome when it comes to that. But, we did a lot of stuff terribly wrong for so many years that you get to the point of, now we have to change. So, wouldn't want to always say that we're perfect by any means, but we've made pretty much every mistake in those areas. So,
Well, Bob, I want to thank you. This has been terrific. And for our audience, I'm sure you enjoyed this as much as I did. And check back in 2 weeks and we'll have the next one for you to enjoy. So have a good one, everybody. Thanks.